Hello everyone, Trophy Wine Hunter. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm excited to bring you a review of the wines of Blue Grouse Vineyards. So Blue Grouse Vineyards is a winery that's out in the Cowichan Valley on Victoria Island. Very interesting how it was established. It was established by the Duncan Project, which was a project of the BC Land Commission when they agreed to fund the testing of over 100 grape varietals on Vancouver Island to see if Vancouver Island could grow grapes for winemaking. BC is known for its winemaking, particularly in the Osoyoos, in the Okanagan region. And Vancouver Island is not as well known. So I guess that's why the BC government or the BC Land Commission wanted to know this. So they funded this for about 7 or 8 years in the early 1980s. And that land was then eventually purchased by a number of companies, and then finally by a person called Dr. Hans Klitz in 1989. So Dr. Hans Klitz was a scientist, and he kind of decided to narrow down the grape varietals that would be grown. And the winery was established in 1992, and it was the second license that was given on Vancouver Island. In 2012, the winery was purchased by the Bruner family, and they added to the holdings. They continued to kind of pare down the grape varietals that was grown on the vineyard. When Dr. Hans Klitz bought the winery, he actually exported over vines from France and Germany, and so they mostly concentrated on vines, German grape varietals, and Pinot Noir. And so that continued under the Bruner family. And in 2021, the winery was purchased by second and third generation Jackson family members. And this is called the Jackson family of wines. And to me, that kind of caught my attention because this family, the Jackson family, is part of Kendall Jackson. And so they own a number of wineries, particularly in the California region, but also in other parts like Chile and things like that. They're not known for purchasing Canadian wineries. And I think it's because they feel that there's a lot of potential here. And so this is why I kind of caught on to this winery. It has some historical interest for me because one of the wines that when I was starting out drinking wine was this wine, which is the Black Muscat, which they still produce, which I will also be reviewing in this video. When I first started drinking, this was a wine that was out there, and I still recall this. This is something I really enjoyed. It's kind of a fortified wine made with the Black Muscat grape. It's very sweet and it's very easy to drink, especially for beginners. You wouldn't really feel the alcohol as much because it was sweet. And so I really remember that. And I'm really glad that they still produce that today. I think there's some real potential for this winery. And just looking down the pike, what they're doing. So they have about 8.5 acres of vineyard producing grapes right now. Another 6.5 acres was planted in 2017, and another 20 acres was purchased right before the Bruners sold it to the Jackson family wines in 2020 and 21. And an additional 35 acres are going to be planted currently under the Cowichan vineyard. So that brings up their total. It's a huge amount of grape varietal. And although I don't know this for a fact, I think what's going to happen is the Kendall Jackson group of wineries is probably going to pare down the grape varietals to the ones that they're really good at, which is Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, which I think is going to be great. Right now, currently, the winery produces a lot of kind of German grape varietals in the white wine space. So I think that's probably, in my guess, that's probably what they're going to do. They're probably going to do focus on Pinot Noir on the red, the whites. They're going to produce Chardonnay. Hopefully they'll keep the Black Muscat, which I really like, and then perhaps make their champagne out of a traditional French blend. The other thing I like about this winery is they've kept their prices fairly reasonable. So these wines that I'm going to be tasting about $35, $40. So it's very reasonable. They're one of the few BC wineries that has a library of very old wines that you can still purchase. So if you look on their website, you can purchase Pinot Gris back, I think, to 2015 or 2016 for still 30 something dollars. And same thing with their Pinot Noirs. I see some 2009s that they even have on their site for $35. It may be just interesting from a historical perspective to drink those wines. And that's why this tasting, I'm really interested, because the winery has sent me a couple of vintages of wine. I don't know too much about the actual vintages in Vancouver Island, but I'm just going to taste and then see how it goes. So they've sent me the 2017, the 2019, the 2020, and the 2021. So the 2021 is their reserve label. It's around $75, and it's the first time that they've have produced a reserve label, probably coming from better vineyards or grapes that are selected. The 2020, the 19, and 17 are just the regular labels. They're about $35, $36 at the winery. You can order them. And it's very small production, about 155 cases each year is being produced. So I think there's a big future for this winery. And I really am quite interested in what the Kendall family of wines can do with the winery over the next 5 or 6 years.
One of the things I really like about Blue Grouse Winery is that on their labels, each label is different. So for instance, the 2017 vintage, they've said it's aged for 12 months in new French oak and neutral American oak barrels for 12 months. And there's 208 cases produced. For the 2019, they said that it was done in whole cluster in amphora and then went into full malolactic fermentation. It was aged in 12 months in 500 liter new French Puncheons and new neutral French barriques, and 110 cases was made. And then for the 2020 vintage, it was very similar, I would say. On the 2021 reserve, it says that it's the selected from their finest barrels and amphora that they produced in 2021. Different clones were carefully chosen to accentuate the unique terroir of the system, and only 50 cases of this wine was produced. Here are the bottles of the Blue Grouse. So this is the front. You'll see the reserve is a black label instead of a white label, and this is the Black Muscat. But what I appreciate about the Blue Grouse Vineyard is that you'll see every one of their labels on the back tells you a little bit about their vintage, and it's specific. So I really think that gives you, as a consumer, a little bit more knowledge about the wines. Let's taste the wines. And I'll let you know that I've had these wines now open for overnight. I had them with dinner with friends, so a number of us tried the wines, and now this is the next day. So I've had this now, this is gonna be my third time tasting the wines over a 24-hour period, and I'm really getting to know the wines. This is really a wonderful opportunity that you don't get often, to be able to taste a vertical of wines, and not that unaffordable. So these wines are around $34 a bottle. The Reserva is about $72, and there's a number of vintages that you can order off their website. So it's a really interesting exercise, and not many producers have that type of collection to be able to do this. So let's start with the 2017. So this was 12 months in French oak and neutral American oak, and 208 cases were made. And in tasting all of these wines, I do get kind of a sense of the wine and the base kind of taste and characteristics of the wine. To me, it always has a clove or peppery taste to it. It's got cherries, dark cherries, strawberries, and fairly light tannins, and sometimes some floral components. But the underlying kind of profile that you see with all these wines is bright cherry, cloves, or white pepper. Those are the most distinguishing features, and some mushroomy, slight forest loam, that type of aromas and taste in all these wines. So this is the 17 vintage. So on the smell, quite a heavy clove, white pepper type smell, and then kind of cherries. Not unexpected for a Pinot Noir. The taste profile, not surprising, very similar to the aroma. Cloves or white pepper, strawberry, red cherries. Very drinkable wine for $30-something. I think very nice wine. I think comparable to many other wines of that price around the world. Comparable to basic Bordeaux wines. Quite a nice wine. My rating of that is going to be 88 points. This is 2019. So in this one, it was a little bit different because on the back of the label, it says that half was done in whole cluster in amphora and underwent full malolactic fermentation, aged 12 months in 500-liter new French punchons and neutral French barriques. A little bit different in terms of the amphora, and I'm a big fan of amphora aged wines. I find them much fresher, and this is the case also with this wine when I've smelled it. All my friends also did notice it also. This was probably our favorite wine of the 4 wines that we tasted. The fruit is much more clear compared to the 17. I think that is the amphora. Probably the vintage is a little bit better, but really bright, vibrant cherries. And then also the spice is white pepper, a little bit more defined, real clear. It's almost like an amphora amplified the aromas and sharpened them a bit, if you can say it that way. On the taste, compared to the 17, it's still the same taste profile, but the fruit, the red cherry fruit, is more vibrant in the glass and then on the palate. And there's an added layer of mushroominess in the aftertaste. So it's almost like you kind of peel the layer back from this wine that you kind of saw in the 19 that you didn't see in the 17. So I'm going to rate this 90 points. I think this is as good a BC wine Pinot that I've had. The comparable would probably be Blue Mountain, is one of my favorite Pinot Noirs. That's now priced a little bit higher at $45. I think it's a great wine for that price. So all of the wines that we tasted and all of the people in my group also agreed upon that. Now we're going to go to the 2020 vintage. So there wasn't a lot of difference. I think, again, this would be in amphora. So I don't think a lot changed from being a 19 and 20 in terms of the stylistically. I think just from tasting the wines, I don't know this for a fact, but I would think the 19 vintage was a little bit stronger in BC, but people could tell me if I'm right or wrong based on my tasting. So this wine, to me, they went for a little bit of a more refined taste, but to me, I prefer the style of the 19. The 19 to me tastes like a wine that was produced on Vancouver Island in the Cowichan Valley. This wine, the 20, is a little bit more refined and almost like they tried to smooth out some of the edges, but I think it took away some of the character of the wine, in my opinion. Same brightness of fruit. I still prefer the 20 to the 17, but my favorite would be the 19 so far. My rating of this wine would be 89 points. Now let's go to the 2021. So this is the first vintage of their reserve. On the nose, again, it looks like it's amplified. To me, it's more intense. All the flavors are there, but it's almost like someone put an amplifier on it. Here, you get a little bit more of the floral characteristics. I smell some floral elements, and also on the taste, I get a little bit more like the black currant kind of aftertaste in this wine. And again, it's just a different layering. I think it's a more sophisticated wine than the regular, but it's also twice the price. So if you were to ask me, this is I would also rate this a 90-point wine. But to me, if I were to buy, I would buy the 19 just because of the pricing. I mean, they're both great wines, but one is $30 under $40 and one is around $70. Just to let you know in passing, I've tasted this wine against two French wines twice. One was the Favely La Framboisier Monopole, which is I think a village wine, and then this time tasted it against a Laurent Poisson Premier Cru from Beaune. And it showed up quite well against these wines. I would say the French wines over the nighttime I tasted with a number of friends showed a little bit more depth and sophistication, but they're also a little bit more expensive too. Both of those wines are in the $100 some odd range, and this wine is around 72. So it showed its class there. I mean, it wasn't a total difference, and there were, you know, it wasn't a standout in terms of everyone enjoyed the French wine. There were some people that also enjoyed this wine more than the French wine. So I think the standard is quite good. I'm very excited about what they're going to do in the next couple of years. I think there's a lot of room for growth. The basic model that they have, the basic grapes are really good. As you can see from this tasting, they're really interesting wines. They're not just simple wines. So even at the their entry-level wines, the 34, they're not simple wines in my opinion. The 19 is really nice. The Reserve has got a little bit more complexity, but again, you're paying a little bit more for the price. So they're all, you know, reasonable wines. And as viewers know, I'm fairly critical on BC wines in terms of pricing, but I think these wines definitely give you excellent value, and I think the Reserve gives you fair value for your money. The other wine I would like to taste from Blue Grouse, which was the initial wine that actually got me noting the winery, is their Black Muscat, which is a fortified wine. It's a blend of different kind of vintages. I think it's about 6 different vintages of the wine in a Solera style. And it's a very small production, only 34 cases is produced, but it's a really unique wine. And when I pour out, you'll see. If you look at it, the color looks like a red wine. It doesn't actually look like a port as much. It's quite bright. And it's a little bit less alcoholic than a port. It doesn't smell as, it smells like a cross between a red wine and a port. So that's kind of nice. It's got some really nice, almost like lychee elements to this, which you wouldn't find in port in terms of the aroma. But I get a kind of a floral component to it that you would never get in port. So it's kind of very attractive in that sense. On the taste, it's port-like, but it's not as heavy as a port. So a lot of times port will have a lot of more almondy, plum taste. This is a little bit lighter on the taste. So I think there is some boysenberries, there's some plum preserve. My rating of this wine is 88 points. Hope you've enjoyed this tasting. I really have enjoyed the whole vertical experience with Blue Grouse. I think you really have to watch this winery. I think they're going to make some great Pinot Noirs and great Chardonnays. So that's my guess, and hopefully I'm right, and we'll see that over the next 3 to 5 years. Until next time, happy drinking.